Hei kaikille. Mä oon täällä tosiaan tänään.
Hello everyone. I'm here to represent the Sukupuolentutkimus Gender Study Journal. I've been the editor of that paper for 2 years now. I wanted to talk to you about two things. First of all, I wanted to talk about how to develop gender budgeting in Finnish national government, and then second of all, I would like to link this discussion from gender budgeting to our afternoon's topic, which is the gender impact of economic policy. I wanted to talk about the opportunities offered by gender budgeting within the financial crisis framework. This fall, with the Sipilä government here in Finland, we've been talking about the gender impact of the Finnish budget, and it's clear that if the government is really committed to promoting equality, they have to take that into account in drafting budgets, for example, as well. They have introduced as a tool gender impact assessment, but nobody, or practically nobody, has mentioned gender budgeting, even if the gender budgeting as a tool is quite well known globally, and as was said earlier, it has been implemented to some extent in Finland as well. But as Jukka and Anna-Maria said earlier, Finland still has a lot of room for improvement here. We haven't integrated the gender perspective in our budgeting process as yet, but I think this is the perfect moment to do that, to really develop gender budgeting. One reason for that is that we have a huge need for that, but there are other reasons as well. And one of the reasons is that gender budgeting really goes quite well together with many things on the current government's agenda. The government likes to talk about a culture where you can try things out. So maybe on this basis you could try some new ways of introducing the gender perspective in budgeting, for example. How about creating a gender budgeting tryout period? Another thing that could promote gender budgeting is promoting the role of NGOs. I think NGO representatives have been very active in discussions having to do with gender equality and the economy. Trade unions, researchers and others, they feel that it is very important to better include the gender perspective in economic policy. It is very important to hear what the civil society has to say, and quite clearly the civil society wants to participate, so this would be the perfect opportunity to utilize this opportunity and really include NGOs and other actors in the civil society into the process. But the question remains, since we don't have a feminist government in Finland as they do in Sweden, do we and do they have the political will to really promote gender budgeting? And more importantly, do they want to promote gender budgeting as a form of carrying out a feminist reform and not just a effective budgeting tool? This morning we heard that gender budgeting can mean various things, and that you can do several things under that umbrella. You can make visible the different kinds of equality appropriations you have. You can analyze the gender impact of public money and private money, and like in Sweden, you can bring equality objectives or make them a part of the work of all ministries, or you can try to change the division of resources with gender budgeting. Based on literature, what decides whether these projects succeed or not? The definition of goals is very important. So if in Finland we want to try and develop gender budgeting forward, we need to be very precise with our definitions. We have to really decide what we want the outcome to be. What are the objectives? So let's not have just another administrative tool for officers in the government to use. Let's not make gender budgeting into that, because I think we have enough of those kinds of tools. And let's not make this into a safe way of carrying out equality work. Let's make this into a dangerous tool that can actually make a change and impact the policies that we are making. One of the important questions is how to get from gender impact assessment to actual change. How can you make that happen? How can you change a situation where the distribution of funds, for example, is maintaining the segregation between genders? How can you change that situation? How can you change the division of resources? Who should you involve in the process, and at what stage? Another theme I wanted to cover briefly has to do with gender budgeting in the framework of the financial crisis. Emilia in the morning already talked about a very important issue, which is that it's not enough to carry out or implement gender budgeting in the micro level or by sector. In other words, it's not enough that you look at how the resources are appropriated in different sectors. You have to focus on the macro level as well. And by macro level, I mean decisions about how public funds are distributed and the strategies for competitiveness and economic growth, for example. The distribution of funds in various sectors, this would be a huge topic, and the financial crisis has tended to overshadow all of these developments. What can it mean to include the macro level as well? Well, first of all, it means that gender budgeting must cover the entire government. The politicians have to be involved as well, and not just people working in the ministries. It's not enough for the ministers to look at their own sector. The gender perspective should be present when medium and long-term decisions on financial frameworks are taken, and also when the forecasts for the development of the economy are made. This is where gender budgeting needs to be present. But there's a problem that is related to this. The problem, I think, goes deeper than gender-blind decisions and ideologies and values that lie behind all of that. How does economics as a science look at genders and gender budgeting? Gender is not a relevant factor in economics, but despite of this, the view of economists of the world and the economy in general is based on genders. And like Emilia said this morning, the unpaid housework and care work, that is something that we have to get past. In order for us to be able to succeed, we have to have better data on genders and better data on the economy. We have to be able to really implement feminist economic thinking in state government as well, and that's not an easy task. Finally, I wanted to say that it is very important that we talk about the economy from various perspectives. Talking about the economy, bringing forward alternatives is not just the job of the Minister of Finance or economists. And gender budgeting, the discussion of gender budgeting could be one way of making this discussion more extensive, wider, to include new actors into political decision making.
Kiitos, Anna, tuu istumaan tänne hetki.